Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Midlife Marriage Mastery, where we just try to make things better. We just try to get good at this thing called marriage. And today I have a wonderful and special guest, and her name is Carla Reeves. And we're going to talk about thought management and writing and life strategy. So, adding those three things together. And for 20 years, Carla has been guiding and teaching people how to get out of survival mentality so that they can build a life on purpose. The centerpiece of to her work is writing as a tool to navigate their life. And just a little background, I met Carla several years ago through a mutual friend, and I found out she was a life coach. We were in a book club together. And when I was thinking about becoming a coach, I definitely picked her brain and asked her some questions. And so we go back a little ways and we just love connecting. So, Carla, thank you so much for being here.
Hi, Lisa. So excited to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, we're going to talk about some cool stuff. Writing your marriage story is one thing, and we were just talking a minute ago about what that might look like in terms of thought work and actual pen to paper. And so we'll dig into that. I just have an offering of a definition of marriage that I wanted to start with. And my definition is that marriage is a relationship based on ceremony, love, and law. And of course, I could have put love first, but I like the way it sounds ceremony, love, and law. And that last part means we are bound legally to someone and are really responsible in some part for their well being as well as ours,
Hmm.
right? And so I'm just curious. I would love for you to, as we start this, to tell me your thoughts about marriage as an institution, and the value it has to you personally, if you want to go there, to society, even. Like,
Mhm.
how do you see long-term marriage as a benefit to life for yourself and others?
Wow, that's a big question to start with.
I know.
Um, it's funny because I think that has evolved a lot in my life. When I think back, I mean, I was married and divorced after 5 years. So this is my second marriage. Um, And in the beginning of marriage, like I was so young, that's just what you did, right? Like you grew up and you went to school and you got a job and you got married and you had a family. And I think society today is like bumping up against a lot of those traditions, right? That I grew up with. But initially, that's what it was. And even when I got married to my husband now, um, I don't think I understood the significance of really what marriage is. And I mean, for me personally, and even when we got married, like God was present and we invited God into that union. But where we were in our faith at that time, like that was, not a huge significance at that time. And so my view of that today is that it is a sacred covenant that you make before God, and that has changed the way I see marriage, the way I show up in marriage, the way I navigate everyday marriage, in a huge way. And I think a lot of our culture and our society is so focused on the physical, the legal binding contract of marriage. And I think it's so much bigger and so much deeper than we're taught or shown.
Wow, that is a beautiful way of putting it. It is a sacred union, and I look at it the same way. Um, and it's a promise, like you make this promise before God and all these people, and what happens? We don't get a manual. We don't get we don't get the book that says here's how it's done really well. And then
Nope.
I can't remember if it was you and I that talked about the work. Like, oh, it's so much work to be married, but like, what's the work? Nobody tells you what that is. So I love that you said that because I think that there has to be a spirituality in your marriage. There has to be something greater than yourself. And you have to look for guidance somewhere because society is going to tell you one thing, and the guidance is probably going to tell you another thing.
Mhm.
So thank you for sharing that. I love that.
Yeah. Well, and
So,
I remember hearing once or reading once, it said, like, marriage isn't designed to make you happy. It's designed to make you holy. And I thought, oh my gosh, is that so true? Like, we go into it thinking it's going to make our life better, it's going to make us happier, when actually some of that may be true, but it's also going to refine us and teach us and shape us and mold us. And that all is extremely uncomfortable.
yes. What do we call it? Like sharpening the saw, or it's like your person is a mirror to your soul and will correct you and challenge you. And in all of that, there is a tremendous amount of growth if you allow that. And then
That's right.
what gets in the way, right, is the ego. And I don't know, all this self-protection stuff that they're talking about now in therapy circles.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I love that. So you kind of specialize in thought work and writing and that kind of thing. So where did the writing start for you?
Hmm. Well, I'll kind of relate it to marriage. Like the writing for me started, I mean, when I was a young girl, I would journal, and my deepest feelings and thoughts. And my mom found that one day, and I think that kind of squashed my writing for a little while.
Oh yeah.
Um, but I was married and divorced, like I said, and I never imagined myself divorced. And that was a huge pivot point in my life and a time that I started writing again to try to figure out. I thought I knew what I was doing. I clearly didn't. And I was trying to figure out, I know there's more to life. I know there's a better way. And I, really felt God call me to write and figure that out in my journal. And fast forward, I met my husband, and this kind of ties to the thought work. I met my husband today, um, 25 years ago, 26 years ago. And we started dating and we got engaged. And I was freaking out because I'd been divorced and I was afraid. I was afraid I couldn't create a successful marriage. I had all kinds of fear and doubt and, uncertainty about that. And we would go out when we were engaged and we would meet with other couples and people, and maybe somebody listening has experienced this, but people would be like, oh my gosh, look how cute they are, they're so in love, and then they would say, oh, just wait till you've been married a little while. And like, I started hearing that more and more and more. And I remember laying in bed one night thinking about it because their comments tapped right into my fear, like, oh my gosh, like what is going to happen? Is this too good to be true? And I remember like laying in my bed one night just thinking about this, like, are they right? Am I making a mistake? And then the next thought was like, because what it felt like in my head was that we were going to get married, and at some future date, a monster was going to come in and just steal all of our love and bliss away.
Hmm.
And in my head, all of a sudden, I had the thought of, what if it's up to us? What if it's up to us to keep the magic and the newness and the bliss and the love alive? And after I heard that thought in my head, I got excited. I got inspired because I thought maybe we have more say in how this goes than it feels like, right?
Yeah.
So that thought literally launched us on a whole different path of like, how can we make sure that we keep these things that we love alive in our marriage forever? And so that's kind of the journey that we've been on. And a lot of that is thought work. And a lot of that comes back to writing. A lot of the writing I do personally to just write through my own emotions or barriers or challenges or frustrations, to make sure that I'm not reacting in the marriage and blowing it up, that I'm being thoughtful and showing up in a way that we could have a marriage that's lasting and that's growing in love, not declining in love.
Well, What I'm hearing is that this was a conscious choice for you, and that you heard what you were hearing out there in this, we'll call it society. It could have been a girls' dinner or whatever. Oh, just wait until this. And if you believe everything you hear like that, you're going to be doomed because there's so much more negativity, and of course, we lean into negativity more than we lean into positivity, just naturally. I'm not sure
Yeah,
why God created us that way, but it just seems like that's the way it is. So for
true.
you to say, wait a minute, it doesn't have to be like that, is so smart and is God driven.
Yeah. Well, I don't know, I had been through the other. So I was in a very different place of like, okay, I did that. That did not work. Like, there's got to be a different way.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, do you think there's like the perfect partner, or like what do you think about like
Mm.
why is it that we can manage to go through life with one person and not another person?
Mhm. I don't know how I feel about that, Lisa. Like, part of me does feel like my husband and I, when we met, like, we literally, like, our energy was like magnets, and we didn't, even from our very first date, like, we didn't want to be apart. Like, we didn't want to be apart, and we still feel that way a lot today. And so I don't know, is that your soulmate? I have no idea.
Yeah,
Um, I
I
really
know.
don't know the answer to that question. It's kind of
Well,
fun to think that there are things like that, but also I think it does factor a lot in your what you make of it.
yeah, absolutely. I think so for me, what I see is that it takes a few things to create a soulmate situation. One is that there does have to be some chemistry there. There has to be an attraction. And secondly, there has to be shared values. Like you have to share similar values enough so that you reduce conflict, you reduce the chances of all that conflict. And I think the third thing is the willingness to be corrected, to be sharpened, to be like, step the ego back a little bit and go, okay, you know, what does this mean for me in our growth and all of that? And you do have to have a receptive partner. I mean, you both have to be that way. So, okay, what does it mean to take part in writing your marriage story? And I know you're gonna talk about the thought work first and pen to paper, but like, what does all of that look like?
Yeah, so writing your marriage story, I mean, it does tie to like actually using writing to as a tool to kind of process emotion, to examine your thoughts, right? To write your dreams and desires and all of that. So physical writing is actually part of that, but also it's like really like an invitation to take part in creating your story, right? Instead of just letting your marriage happen to you or letting life happen to you, like God has given us amazing creative abilities that we can grab a hold of to take part in the creation of that. And so for us, that looked like having a vision like really early on. I don't know that we sat down and made a vision together, but we both wanted to create a marriage that was extraordinary. We didn't want to have a mediocre marriage. We wanted to create something amazing. And so we had that in front of us. Like we've had that in front of us our whole marriage. And I think partly because we both came from a training of like really taking ownership over your life and shaping your life and having influence. And so we both shared that and had that when we got married, which was a real blessing because we both had some tools to actually do that. But it looked like having a vision and then aligning the way that we're thinking, the way that we're showing up, the way that we're treating each other, the way that like our choices to that vision over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, right? Um,
Yes.
and a lot of conversation, a lot of talking through the resistance, talking through the problems, talking through things. But ultimately, it's that vision that I think for both of us gave us our posture and like how to align in the face of like being angry or upset or having disagreements. Like knowing what we wanted to create kind of guided how we were going to show up in the moment, right? Like, I think you and I, when you were on my podcast, which they should go listen to your episode too, um, but we talked about like I think you shared about, just erupting or reacting to your husband or saying things that you would later regret that just weren't okay. It's
Yeah.
that. It's like it's taking ownership for your own behavior. Am I showing, so often we want to look over there and just be like, look at what they're doing wrong. But it's really more about looking, we both had an agreement, like we're gonna work on ourselves so that we can show up and create something beautiful together. And it has not been easy and it has been a long journey, you know. But today, like, I never knew that you could literally fall in love over and over and over again if you keep the foundation of your marriage clean. And that's what's happened. We're more in love today than we were when we met. And it just continues to change and evolve. And I think that's what's possible in marriage, but we're never taught that. Like I thought I was so young and naive, but I thought you just got married and it kind of just took care of itself. Uh,
Well, there was so much divorce in my family. Everyone had been divorced. And not even before we got married, but there was some of it before we got married, but then even after we got married, there was even more divorce for my siblings and that kind of thing. So I saw what that did, and it was disturbing to me and to my husband. And we dated for 8 years, so we really knew each other when we got married. And even then, it was hard, you know? And I don't even think my husband participates probably nearly to the extent that your husband has. Like, I think your husband is way more open. Like, he's been on your podcast and he's like interested in your work and all that. My husband, not so much. He's very quiet, he's introverted, he doesn't like talking about conflict. And he almost never sees that he's done something wrong. Very hard for him to apologize. But the thing I know about him is that he loves me very much. And there are other ways that he shows that. And so I feel like I have primarily been the leader in our relationship, the confident, emotional leader in the relationship. A lot of people think men don't have feelings. They're just, they bottle them all up and they never show them. And that's just a terrible thing. And I'm like, oh, no, 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 they do. They have feelings. They have feelings, and the only way you're going to know that is if they trust you enough and feel safe enough to show them.
wow, that is so powerful, Lisa. I think that's so true. I think for so many years of our marriage, I did not allow space for my husband to do that. And I didn't know that I wasn't allowing space for it, but I remember when he told me that. And that was like a punch in the gut for me. Like I felt so sad, but he could never share his vulnerabilities or his fears or his feelings because I would make it about me because it would scare me or make me feel fearful for our family or whatever it was. There wasn't space for him to just say the thing because I'd be freaking out about what it meant for me and everybody else. And that was a really big regret for me in my marriage. And I'm so happy to like, I don't know why. I mean, I guess we're not taught, right? But it's not very, I can see now it's not hard to just hold space for whatever he's feeling. But it seemed impossible back then as a young mom.
Yeah. I mean, and some people really just are unkind. You know what I mean? Like, I don't see you as ever having been unkind, but we do have blind spots. And I think, what does love look like actually? you
Mm.
mentioned regret, and I think, a lot of times we have like regret. I'm going to put it in quotes, but because of the thought work, we don't have to live there, right? We can be like, oh, well, I learned that lesson and now I know, and now I'm empowered to be different or think differently. And so now I can create that space and I know how to do that. And how cool is that that I can just do that
Yes.
with my brain? And wonder if you could like give us an example of what might trigger someone in a relationship. Okay, just pick anything. There's a million things, I know. But then what is your process?
That's a
Brain,
great question.
you could have the process could be in your brain and it could be in your journal, but like I'd love to know what you think.
Yeah, so I mean, this is a process that I learned that I use, and I do it in my head, but I do it with my clients with pen and paper.
Mhm.
But it's really like something happens in your life. So let's just say, I mean, literally, my husband could sometimes just say one word or look at me a certain way, and I can be triggered,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
It
We talked
doesn't
about
take a
that last
lot.
time.
Um, but what happens is they do something and then we're spinning in our head, right? Like angry, upset, whatever it is. And so the tool that you can use is to separate the facts from the story. So, first we would do is write down the facts. So the facts are that he looked at me with that look again. Okay. And
Yeah.
in the outer circle, I'm thinking, he thinks I'm ridiculous. He doesn't understand what I just said. He doesn't listen or whatever, right? The whole outer circle is all the things that start to spin in your head about what happened. So you have the facts and then you have the story. And what happens is when after you write all that out, as humans, we are storytelling machines. So we're so good at that outer circle. Um, and what happens is the two just get collapsed in life. And so it just feels like all of that happened, right? Um, and then we react to all of it. And
Hmm.
that's where we create so many problems because we're not only reacting to the look he just gave me, but we're reacting to the last 20 years of things that have happened or things that happened even before our relationship, right? In my life. So separating those two things allows you to look at the facts and then choose your response, right? So in that case, if he gives me a look and I'm furious inside, I can say, hey, you just looked at me this way and it made me feel like this. Is that what you meant? And 98% of the time, he's like, no, I didn't mean any of that. And so you can save yourself so much anguish internally. You can save your relationship with just a simple question. You know, like you just said this, it made me feel like this. Is that what you meant?
Yeah. I call that getting clarity.
I love
Um,
that.
yeah, you got to get clarity. And I've experienced the same thing with the same looks, different looks, but same thing. Yeah. All right, let's just say you don't stop. Let's just say you don't stop and do that. What happens? You spin out in thoughts, right? You spin
Yeah,
out.
so for me, if it was just a, I mean, a look or if he said something or if I was really upset, for me, I might react and say something snarky or I might close up and walk away,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I think that's what we a pattern we had to overcome in our marriage was closing. We called it closing our vault, but like where one of us or both of us would close up
Yeah.
and then we're more distant. And
Yeah.
so, there's either separation or there's connection. And those moments are moments where you have a choice to either create more separation or to build connection.
Yes. Okay. And then I see a space in between there where something happens, and instead of reacting, um, you walk away and you're like, God, what an asshole. He's such an ass, right? You start calling him names,
Building a story.
you build the story, and then the option is to go with that story, right? And to close off, like you said. And then another option is to take your thoughts to inquiry, right? Inquiry, like Byron Katie teaches us. So is that true? Is he really an asshole? No, like, not really. Maybe I am.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. So there's all different ways we can go with that. But I like the way that you're doing it, which is um, getting clarity right off the bat and examining the thinking that's going on with your trigger in your reaction.
So true. A little bit of communication sometimes can like change everything. I so often I talk to clients who or friends who they go to their husband and they want to like share something about their day and our husbands naturally want to solve things.
Yes.
And so they immediately go into trying to solve the problem or whatever. And the woman never really wanted a problem solved. She just wants to share her day.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so even just setting your husband up for that, like just saying like, "Hey, I want to share my day. There's nothing to solve. I just want you to hear me. I just want to share." That can relieve everybody in such an amazing way.
Oh, yeah. Especially your husband, because then he doesn't have to feel like he has to solve a problem.
Yes.
That takes brain energy and all of that. Um, how can your marriage fuel your life?
Hmm. I think that's just the journey that we have been on, like of trying to figure out, like, if this is the space where we spend most of our time, how can we make this so amazing? Because when I was married the first time, like it got, pretty bad to a point where I would come home and I would literally feel like I walked through the door and like just felt like I shut down all the lights inside of myself and I just went in that home and I just existed and then I'd go to work and work was more fun and I liked being there more than I liked being home.
Mm,
And
that's telling, isn't it? Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, that's
yeah.
sad. Yeah.
Yeah. And so we wanted to make something that we want to be in, that we're a space where we want to be, where we can help each other through life. And obviously it's been a long journey of getting to know each other, and I think after kids we spent a period of time, like I think it was right after COVID or maybe even during COVID, like hiking together for like 2+ hours, and we started having conversation about things that we've never talked about, for like stories from our childhood or just we just got into territory we never would have because we had like 2+ hours to just talk, and it like really rekindled our friendship. Um, and I think that like having God in your marriage and being like seeing it as like we're a team. My husband used to always say it's like us against the world. um, like we're
Yes.
a team and we're not fighting each other, but we can go to God when we have troubles, right? And learning to take care of each other. I think you said that earlier, like learning to uplift each other and take care of each other and help each other thrive so that we can thrive together. Um, our intimacy, like I think there's so many things, and this would probably have to be another conversation, Lisa, but we've been on quite a journey, like understanding intimacy in the sense of like, how do we get in God's design for intimacy and how that beautiful design that God made, like literally can energize our individual bodies and our life and uniting our spirits and like it be more of a spiritual connection. And that has brought a lot of fuel to life. So I like to say it because I think so often you hear of marriage as just like this energy draining, life draining thing. And I just
Yes.
want to like paint the possibility that actually it doesn't have to be, and it can be life giving.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. Yeah, you're right. I think intimacy is a big part of that. Yeah. And unfortunately, too many people let that go.
Yeah. I mean, how
Yeah.
often do we hear now like couples just sleep in separate bedrooms and they just coexist almost like roommates?
Yeah.
And that's the only differentiator in a marriage, really, from any other relationship.
I love that you said that because you said it recently. Maybe it was our last conversation on your podcast. You said that was a differentiator, and that resonated with me. I was like,
Mm.
she's so right about that. Like, I should know this, and it just hit me in a certain way
Different
that
way.
this is the difference between us, between being married and not being married, or being friends, being platonic, right? And also separates us from the animals because we get to create pleasure in such a different way. It's not all about procreation, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, very cool. Well, Carla, you've got some stuff going on that you want to share because this is necessary for people. This is good stuff. So what's going on? What can you share with us that you're doing for other people?
You mean inside of my business?
Yes, inside of your
Mhm.
business and how you're serving people through this thought work and writing and journaling and all of that.
Yeah. So today, gosh, so I have a podcast called Differently, and Lisa was just on that. So you should go listen to her episode. And so I definitely through the podcast. And then I have a free class that I host just about every month where you can come have an experience of writing your life forward and like how to use writing to actually like go inward, process what's happening in your life, and use writing to figure out how you want to show up and move forward in your life. So that's a really cool experience. That's a great way to check the work out. I just started something called the Conversation Club that is a great next step. It's based around writing and conversation. Like I have this belief that we need to be in more conversations that fuel our life. A lot of times people don't have, even in their circles, they don't have people they can talk about this kind of stuff with. And so this is another space where you can come with a small circle of people, kind of like a mastermind slash writing creative gathering to with a theme to work through your life like real time. So whether it's business or relationships or life. So that's cool and fun and new.
Very
Um,
cool.
and then I take people through private coaching, through a private writing experience where we do a lot of examination of your thoughts and help you see where you're in survival mentality and where how you can get out of that to really start to create a life on purpose because the thoughts just if we don't clean them up and shift them and change them, we end up kind of recreating the same unfulfilling things over and over again. So that's really a deep dive to sort of clean the foundation of that so that you can really build your life on a solid foundation.
I love that. So you've got a lot of offerings or a few really solid offerings. I love the Conversation Club, especially because I think people are starving for that. And by the way, I did attend one of Carla's writing uh, workshops, and it was phenomenal. Really, the questions are really good. And oh, by the way, I forgot to mention that Carla was my coach for a while. Gosh darn it. And she's really good.
Oh,
Um,
thank you.
yeah, really good. So, Carla, they can find you at carlareeves.com. And
Yes. And I did just self-publish a guided journal, a journal with a guide that has a guide that follows kind of the methodology that I apply in every area of my life, which is examine your thoughts, expand your perspective, and align your actions to, your vision. So I do have a journal too.
yay,
That's
and
new. I forgot.
it's beautiful. Yes, very good. Well, Carla, thank you so much for joining me today. It was such a pleasure. And I kind of wish we could do this every week, but
That might be fun, Lisa.
I'm sure we have other podcast ideas and guests, but this has been such a pleasure. So thank you for being my guest and sharing your wisdom and continued success in your beautiful marriage.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Lisa, for the work you do. Marriage is so important, and I love what you're doing. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you too.
Thanks for
Great.
having me.
Yeah, thanks everyone. So look up Carla. Her info will be in the show notes. And thank you for joining me today on Midlife Marriage Mastery. Have a beautiful day.